The storm didn't just arrive that night, it crashed into the mountains like an angry beast. The sky, normally clear enough for Elijah to map constellations by heart, had turned into a churning sea of charcoal clouds. Rain hammered the tin roof of his cabin so hard it sounded like the heavens were pouring nails instead of water. Elijah had been sitting by the fire, boots off, nursing a mug of strong coffee after a long day repairing the old fence line. He was ready for silence, for peace, for a night where nothing demanded his attention. So when someone knocked, no, pounded, on his door, every hair on his arm stood up. Nobody came this far up Greystone Ridge. Not unexpectedly, not without calling first. The nearest neighbor lived nearly 5 miles away, and even he didn't bother driving up in weather like this. Elijah froze mid-sip, lowering the mug carefully, listening again. Another knock followed, hard, urgent, not the timid tap of a lost hiker or a passing traveler. Whoever, or whatever, was out there sounded desperate. He stood slowly, grabbed the flashlight hanging by the door, and unlatched the lock. The wind blasted it open the second he turned the handle, spraying him with cold rain in a gust powerful enough to shove him back a step. But what he saw made him stop completely. No one, only the pitch-dark forest, bending violently as the storm lashed at the treetops. The path leading down the mountain was empty. The gravel driveway glistened with puddles, but there were no tracks, no car, no footprints, no tire marks. "Hello," he called out, voice nearly swallowed by thunder. "Anybody there?" Nothing answered. He might have shut the door then and convinced himself it was just the wind, some old loose board hitting the porch rail, except something else caught his eye. Down near his feet, a wicker basket, sitting directly on the welcome mat, soaked through but perfectly placed, as if set there gently moments ago. Elijah's pulse thudded. He shone the flashlight over the basket, noticing the woven handle, the blue blanket tucked inside, and the faint steam rising from its warmth against the icy night. Someone had left it only seconds before he opened the door. He crouched, his mind racing. A basket like this wasn't something someone dropped as they fled. It had been delivered, deliberately, purposefully. The idea alone sent a chill through him that had nothing to do with the storm. The wind screamed again, tugging at the basket's corner. Elijah reached forward and steadied it. The blanket moved, just barely, but enough for his breath to catch in his throat. Oh God, it was alive. Elijah, he muttered to himself, you'd better rethink this. But the truth was, he already knew he wasn't walking back into the house and leaving that basket outside alone. He lifted the cloth, peeling it back a little at a time, bracing for, he didn't know what. Kittens, a puppy, a wounded animal someone couldn't care for. The mountains had their share of strange drop-offs from irresponsible tourists. But the moment the blanket slipped aside, Elijah's world stopped. A baby, not more than 3 or 4 months old. Tiny, wrapped snugly, calm, too calm for the chaos around her. Her eyes were large and dark, reflecting the beam of his flashlight like 2 polished stones. She didn't cry, she didn't flinch, she just stared straight at him, as though she'd been waiting for him specifically to open that door. Elijah, he whispered, barely able to breathe. What on earth? Then he saw the note. A small piece of folded paper pinned gently to the blanket. He plucked it off with trembling fingers, shielding it from the rain as he opened it. The handwriting was messy, rushed, the paper slightly torn. Please protect her. They're coming. His stomach dropped. Before he could read it again, before he could even decide if this was some twisted joke, something moved in the forest. Morning didn't bring peace. It brought questions, too many, piling on top of one another like logs ready to collapse. Elijah barely slept, dozing in short bursts with the rifle balanced against his knee and the basket resting beside the couch. The baby had slept soundlessly, almost unnervingly still, as though the storm and the terror outside belonged to another world entirely. When the sun finally broke through the thinning clouds, he eased open the front door and stepped out cautiously. Rain had slicked everything in silver, but what made his breath catch were the tracks. Not footprints, not paw prints either. The marks embedded in the mud were deep, heavy, spaced far apart, like whatever had paced the porch had been large enough to shake the boards beneath it. Too large. The prints formed a circling pattern, looping around the cabin and stopping directly in front of the door, as if something had been waiting for him to open it. Elijah swallowed hard. Whatever had come last night wasn't just a frightened person fleeing danger, it was something hunting. He backed inside, locking the door again, and returned to the baby. She lay awake now, staring up at the ceiling with quiet curiosity. When Elijah leaned over her, she lifted her small hands toward him, not frantically, but with deliberate calm, as if she already recognized him. "Your trouble," he murmured, lifting her gently. "Sweet and innocent-looking trouble. But I guess we're stuck with each other now." She rested against his chest, warm and surprisingly steady. Most babies wriggled or fussed, this one didn't. She seemed aware, alert, too alert. Elijah settled her in the old rocking chair beside the window and studied the note again. "Please protect her. They're coming." Who was they, and why would anyone leave a child out in a storm unless the danger behind them was even worse? He paced the room for a full minute before deciding he couldn't just sit and speculate. He needed answers, and answers in Greystone Ridge came from one place, the old mountain archives, a dusty cabin-turned-library kept by the elderly caretaker, Martha Kent. She knew folklore, local legends, and every strange whisper the mountains kept. But he couldn't risk leaving the baby alone. So he bundled her in a fresh blanket, strapped her gently in the backseat of his truck, and headed down the muddy path toward the archives. The drive was slow, the storm had washed out parts of the road, but the baby watched everything with wide, unblinking eyes. "You're awfully quiet," he muttered. "Most kids scream the moment you put 'em in a car seat." She blinked slowly, almost meaningfully. When he reached the old archive cabin, he found the door half open. Martha, usually meticulous, would never leave it that way. Elijah stepped inside with caution, baby cradled in his arms. "Martha," he called. The lights were off, but morning sun streamed through the dusty windows, illuminating scattered books on the floor. Like someone had searched through them in a hurry. Or fled. "Martha, you in here?" His voice echoed back to him. He set the baby on a sturdy table and scanned the shelves. Old maps, journals, carvings, and then something caught his eye. A leather-bound book with a familiar symbol burned into the cover, a curling, spiral mark. The same one on the baby's ankle. Elijah's heart thumped as he reached for the book. He recognized the symbol from the ruins deep in the forest, ruins tied to stories the locals preferred not to speak about. Stories of ancient guardians, forest pacts, creatures that protected, and punished. He flipped through the pages until one illustration stopped him. Cold, a child wrapped in light, marked with the spiral symbol. The caption underneath read, "The Warden's Heir, born once in a century, feared by creatures of the boundary." Elijah, the whisper was so faint he almost dismissed it, until he realized the baby had turned her head toward the door. A shadow passed across the window. Then another. He scooped her up quickly, clutching the book in one hand. His breath turned to ice when a deep voice boomed from outside the cabin. The door didn't just crack this time, it groaned, sagging inward under the weight of whatever hammered at it from the other side. Elijah stared at the splintering wood, then at the baby in his arms. Her eyes were no longer calm. They shimmered with fear, or recognition. He didn't have time to think. He dropped to his knees, sweeping aside the old rug. Beneath it lay the rusted ring of the hidden trapdoor, a leftover from when the cabin had been a supply station during the early mining years. Elijah yanked it open, dust billowing upward, the dark room below reeking of earth and old roots. He lowered the child gently inside. "I'll come back," he whispered, hoping the words weren't a lie. "Stay quiet, stay down." Her tiny eyes locked on his face, unblinking, as if she understood more than any infant should. The moment he closed the hatch, the front door finally gave way. A monstrous roar filled the cabin. Elijah spun around just in time to see the creature step through the ruined doorway, towering, antlered, draped in matted fur and shadows. Its claws scraped deep grooves into the wooden floor. Its breath steamed in the cold air like smoke from a dying fire. "You defy us, human," it growled, voice echoing like several voices layered at once. "The child does not belong to your kind." Elijah grabbed his rifle from where it had fallen beside the table. The creature's eyes, burning, molten gold, followed the movement, almost amused. He fired. The bullet struck its chest and ricocheted off like a pebble. He fired again, and again, each shot useless, swallowed by the creature's hide. On the fourth shot, the creature surged forward. A massive arm swept outward, striking Elijah clean across the room. His back slammed into the wall. Pain exploded across his ribs, and the rifle clattered away. He gasped, vision blurring at the edges. The creature stalked toward him, each step rattling shelves and shaking dust from the ceiling. "You cannot protect what you do not understand," it snarled. "The Warden's heir must be reclaimed." Warden's heir. The words from the book flashed in his mind. The child of a forest guardian, born once in a century. hunted by ancient creatures who feared her power, feared what she would become. Elijah dragged himself forward, trying to reach the trapdoor. The creature lunged, only for something to stop it mid-stride. A faint light glowed from beneath the floorboards. The creature froze, head snapping downward. The light expanded, soft at first, then brighter, spreading like water seeping through cracks. Elijah shielded his eyes as the boards warmed under his palms. The trapdoor burst open, not violently, beautifully. A sphere of shimmering air lifted the baby upward, cradling her. She hovered inches above the floor, wrapped in swirling white and pale gold light. Her expression was no longer helpless or frightened. She looked, awakened. The birthmark on her ankle, once faint, now blazed like a brand of fire. The creature stumbled back, antlers scraping the ceiling. No, it rasped. She is too young, she cannot. But she could. The light intensified, pulsing with each tiny heartbeat. Elijah watched, stunned, as tendrils of glowing vines, made not of wood but pure energy, emerged from the floor and walls. They coiled around the creature's limbs, rooting into its fur, dragging it backward. The monster roared, thrashing, snapping the vines, but more grew instantly. Thick, ancient, alive. Elijah, the creature gasped, suddenly desperate. If she awakens fully, she will bind us all. Human and beast alike. Elijah didn't move, didn't answer. He could only watch as the vines dragged the beast toward the shattered doorway, pulling it across the yard, its screams echoing into the forest. Then the forest answered. A deep hum rose from the earth, the sound of rooted power, old as the mountains themselves. The trees swayed not with wind, but with intention. When the vines dragged the creature past the tree line, the forest simply swallowed it. Silence settled. The light around the baby dimmed, flickering like a candle struggling in the wind. She drifted downward and landed softly in Elijah's arms. Her breathing was shallow, exhausted. He held her close, heart still racing. You saved us, he whispered unsteadily. Or saved me. Outside, the forest grew still, peaceful again, as if it had finally exhaled after centuries of tension. Elijah carried the baby to the rocking chair, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. She wasn't ordinary. She wasn't accidental. She had been brought to him with purpose.